All right. Hello, this is Tony.
And this is Rico.
And this is Relatively Sound, the podcast that grows up to be a man. Today we have a fun episode here. We have Christopher Antonucci back on the podcast today.
Hey, hey.
And we're going to be talking to Rico about the Beach Boys Today, their 1965 record, which, Chris, is your favorite of theirs?
Absolutely.
Good choice. Good choice. I am a fan of this one too, and I'm really excited to hear what Rico thinks. He has listened to the album, prepared some notes, and Chris and I are going to try to not get too upset with him for any bad takes he has. No pressure at all, Rico.
Yeah, you said you were excited. Just think about how you said that right now, because you might not be so excited by the end of this episode.
Oh boy.
I do want to start off with asking you guys why you picked this one for my next one. If people haven't seen the previous episodes, actually one of the first episodes that we did with Chris was Summer Days and Summer Nights. The first one, okay. And then Tony and I did one on Pet Sounds. It's an album I've heard a couple times before in my life, but I wanted to hear it again now knowing more Beach Boys songs and diving into the lore of the album. So I'm curious why you guys decided on this album for my next Beach Boys experience.
Well, Chris, why don't you start here?
I know I mentioned it on that episode of was it Summer Days and Summer Nights that this was the first album that Brian did after retiring from touring at the time after his was it panic attack or nervous breakdown. So he spent all this time focused on the writing and recording of their music while the others toured with I think Bruce Johnston took his place touring. So this was the first one that you could definitely hear the Phil Spector influence, and I feel like it goes to better precursor to Pet Sounds than Summer Days and Summer Nights.
Agreed. Yeah, especially some of those later tracks in the record really do kind of lend itself towards what we get with Pet Sounds.
Right. Even the sound of it too.
Yeah, it actually is kind of crazy listening back. You think it would be the direct record before, but not the case.
Right.
And I think a reason too we're also choosing this one is it just celebrated its what 50th
60.
anniversary?
60th.
60?
Yeah.
Quite some time has passed.
Yeah.
And I am also very excited once we give Rico some later Beach Boys stuff,
hmm
because I think some of their most interesting work is kind of within there. But you gotta get the classic Beach Boys down first. You have to have
Right.
that foundation, I think, to truly appreciate the hit or misses on later records.
For sure.
Why don't you go ahead and give us a quick overview of your listening experience with this, and then maybe we can go ahead track by track and break it down from there.
Well, I got to be honest. On a first listen, I was kind of like, why the hell did they give me this album next? Because I was kind of disappointed. I know. Oh, and I forgot to mention. I knew I was forgetting an album. We also did the other episode, Tony. The other album, your favorite. Why is the name escaping me?
Smile.
Smile, yeah.
Yes, that is right. One of my favorites. Yes,
But we did the special version of the album, right? Not the.
we did like the tapes, like the sessions,
Yeah.
the Smile
Oh,
sessions, as opposed to
Yeah.
Brian Wilson presents Smile.
So when I listen to this album, I always do this when I listen to an album that I know other albums from the band or artist. I compare it, and I know I shouldn't, but it's just kind of in my nature. And like, this is obviously easier to compare to Summer Days and Summer Nights than Pet Sounds or the Smile Sessions, because I feel like the songwriting is a little less complex, a little less dynamic. But I really enjoy Summer Days and Summer Nights, and I like it for what it is. Like it's just kind of a fun album. I feel like the first half of that album is kind of the summery, kind of carefree type of songwriting. They're singing about amusement parks, and they're complaining about their dad at the end of the album, and it's fun. But it also has some really other moments that are just really strong. California Girls, You're So Good to Me, Help Me Rondo, which obviously we get it on this album.
Let him run wild.
That's good. I'm not leaving that song out. I was just giving some of my favorites. But with this album, Beach Boys Today, I was just a little let down, especially because I think the album starts off really strong, and I think it hits a lull kind of near the middle end. And that's why I stopped doing my research, because from Wikipedia, it sounded like a lot of people, like critics and stuff, preferred kind of the songs near the end because the more ballad type of songs they were writing were kind of more in vein of stuff they would do on later albums like Pet Sounds. And I just think they weren't nearly as strong as the ballad or slower songs on Pet Sounds. So I will say on like my sixth or seventh listen of this album, I was definitely enjoying the ballads more. But I will say I did kind of hit a Beach Boys fatigue, if that makes sense. I did kind of hit a wall where I was like, some of the things that they're best known for was starting to just become just a tad bit annoying to me. And I know you guys will definitely disagree with some of that, but so I will say I like the album a lot more than I did on the first couple listens, but I was kind of worried on those first couple listens. I was kind of like, Tony and Chris are not going to be so happy with my notes.
I mean, this is a short record, so I am glad you talked about giving it like 6 or 7 listens. I think this is an album that is at least digestible, so I'm sure you will have a lot of things to say for each track. Before I get too upset, why don't we just start kind of walking through this? I will say I'm very surprised you're saying that the first half of the album was kind of grabbing you more than the last half, because show my cards right here. I think the last half is perfect. Like, obviously we're not counting Bowl Session with Big Daddy.
Well, we have to. Well, we'll get to it when we get to it.
Do we really have to?
Well, I had to. That's the reason I started doing my research, because when I got to it, I was like, is this just some weird like add-on thing that they added way after the fact? But it was featured on both the mono and stereo mix and the remastered mix. So I'm like, I think this is like a real song.
It's for
album.
Documentation purposes. It's for the historians to keep it on there.
I know,
right?
but it's not like a hidden track or anything. It is the last song on the album.
All right, if you're spending this episode criticizing the last throwaway track that's not even a song, then I think there's other priorities you should be focusing on.
No, I'm not, and I know that I know you didn't mean that song in your little wrap up there, but
all right. Well, why don't we start at the beginning here, like every good record?
Well, okay, so like I said, I think the album starts really strong. I think Do You Want to Dance is one of my favorites on the album. It kind of goes against what I said, because I did say that part of my fatigue was some of these songs being just kind of like the carefree, happy songs on summer days and summer nights. But that said, this one is, I think, a really great opening track. I think it has a lot of energy and has a nice driving beat to it. For some reason, and Tony, this is something you'll have to maybe think on later and get back to me. When they sing the word moonlight, the melody in which they sing it really reminds me of something you and I used to listen to when we were younger, but I don't know what. So later after the episode, you should listen to it and try to figure it out, because it really reminds me of a melody from like another song.
All right.
But something that we probably don't listen to anymore. I liked that this song, it felt like it had some things hidden in the background, and you guys can maybe tell me if I'm right on this. Like, it seemed like during certain sections of the songs, there were some strings in the backgrounds and maybe even horns. I don't know if that's correct. I did not look at like the personnel on this album, but I feel like there was moments where they were kind of hidden a little bit in the mix, but they were just kind of right under where you can kind of hear them adding to like the rhythm of the song. And if I'm making that up, then so be it. But whatever it was, I liked the production to the song. I do know later on in the album there's definitely strings and some horns, but I swore I heard them in this song too.
Sure, go ahead.
Probably right, because this is the album, I think, when he first fully utilized the Wrecking Crew band, so it was definitely group of musicians that Phil Spector had used, so everyone playing all at once, so you probably did hear that stuff.
Okay. And I think that helped add to this song and make it not a stereotypical early Beach Boys kind of song. Definitely a song where I thought the vocals are really solid, the backing harmonies were on point.
Hmm.
Um, I like how in the chorus the melodies just seem louder and the drums also seem louder. They kind of adds to the dynamics of the song. Definitely more fills going on with the drums in the chorus. Really like the little guitar break, which then
Mm.
eventually will go into the solo, which is
Yep,
cool because I don't at this point I don't remember a lot of Beach Boys songs that I've heard on these albums where there's like as much emphasis on a guitar solo. And there's a couple songs on this album where there are little guitar breaks, which I think is just a nice touch. And lyrically, it's a nice song. It's nothing mind blowing. It is kind of what I'm considering a stereotypical Beach Boys type song. There's definitely better lyrics on this album, but there's also worse lyrics on this album. So it's kind of in the middle. But yeah, Do You Want to Dance is actually one of my favorites. I don't know if that sounds a little hypocritical given my earlier complaints on some of the other songs, but
Well,
I
first
enjoy
off, just
it.
so you know, it is a cover,
hmm,
Oh, okay. So see, I
written by
didn't know
Bobby
that.
Freeman. And this is Dennis on lead vocals. And I think this is maybe Dennis's strongest vocal up to this point, just off the top of my head. Although, if you listen closely, you can actually hear him like on the double track, like sing the wrong lyric on one of them.
hmm,
It's kind of a fun little detail. But no, I think this is really good, like just like feel good opener. Yeah, I think it does showcase just kind of like this big collection of sound, like the Phil Spector thing, where it's all kind of just hitting you at once.
definitely.
No, I always think I like this one. Every time I hear it, it's just it's just a good little song.
Yeah, it's like one of the might have been one of Dennis's first ones, like lead vocals.
Yeah, I know the only one I can really think of before this top of my head is "This Car of Mine,"
Oh,
which
maybe.
I like that one, but
Yeah, so I think the album begins strong, and I think it continues strong. The next track, "Good to My Baby," I
Yes.
also really enjoy.
Hmm.
Um, it starts off, and it has that kind of barbershop quartet kind of sound with the vocals, which is not something I like normally dig, but I found it fitting for this song. And I like the contrast to like the following surf rock guitar riff that comes in.
Oh, I love that.
I
Yeah.
do really enjoy that. I find the song interesting too because I feel like the chord progression shifts between happy and kind of more sad a lot, and I really dig the song for that. It keeps it more interesting to me than just a completely up tempo, major sounding pop song. Um, I liked how the drums become a bit more heavy near the end of each chorus. I think that also kind of keeps it interesting. I think it's a good second song for the album. I think it plays well off of Do You Want to Dance?
Mhm.
I will say too, maybe like some of the lyrics too fit the kind of vibes I'm getting from like the verses. Cause like there's a lyric about how people think he's treating her so mean. And that line kind of stands out as like, what is this dude's intentions? Like he's telling us that like he's so good to her, but I'm like, is he really? Like, normally people don't have to say that if it's true, you know? So I don't know if there was like, yeah, this is one of the songs where lyrically I was kind of like, okay, this is interesting. Like this isn't just as straightforward as some of the other like blood ballad songs on the album. So definitely another favorite of mine. Definitely, I think has a lot more going on dynamically than the opening track. And yeah, this was another one of my favorites. I don't know if this is a favorite for you guys or.
yeah, Chris,
Oh,
so
it
let you
is.
go first on this.
No, I mean, pretty much said it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like, as far as like the first half of the record, the upbeat songs, I think this is probably underneath Do You Want to Dance for me. But I think this is one of the stronger ones of the bunch. And as you mentioned, Rico, about kind of the lyrics maybe being kind of having that 60s flavor, we'll just go ahead and say. I think that does kind of get kind of retouched upon later in the album with She Knows Me So Well, now that we're kind of pointing it out, but we'll get to that later.
So now we get to the album where I start having some complaints. But I mean, I will say I did like the first half of the album more, but the next song, Don't Hurt My Little Sister, is where I do have some small issues. First of all, I found the production to just sound a lot different than the rest of the album. It sounds smaller for some reason. It sounded like a little quieter, even though there's a lot going on in the song. So I don't know. It just felt like it was like from another album almost. So, and I really noticed that today when I was listening with my better headphones. So I don't know. Maybe it could just be the version I was listening to or what. I will say I did listen to the mono and the stereo and the remastered. I'm not so much a mono guy, so I definitely lean more towards stereo, but I mean, that's just like a preference thing. I like the guitar tone. And, I did like the instrumentation for the most part. Yeah, and then vocally too, this is where it started becoming a little grating for me. The backing vocals were just a bit much for me, like during the chorus. Yeah, so like this song, I can appreciate most of the instrumentation, but something about the production and then for sure the lyrics, I just could not really connect with or get a feel for, if that makes sense.
I like that you started your breakdown with I like the guitar tone, I like some of the music, and I'm not protective of my sister. I mean, I'm not gonna maybe try to defend this song so much. I think what you're saying is pretty fair. I do think that this song and Good of My Baby are pretty unique sounding. Like, if you actually think about the music and the melodies. But I mean, I'm not gonna argue with what you're saying. I think those are all valid. I think that's a valid perspective.
So I'm not crazy.
No, not at all.
Okay, so this isn't like a top song for most people on this album. Like,
I mean,
okay.
it's pretty buried in the first side.
Yeah, it also just doesn't seem like it fits the vibe of the first side. Like, I mean, like musically maybe, like the tone, but like for sure lyrically, it doesn't. Like, I don't
No,
know.
lyrically, no, but definitely music-wise for sure.
Yeah.
I will say I do enjoy the next song a bit more. When I grow up to be a man, I still have a couple complaints though that I know Tony's not going to be happy with. I will say I don't the beginning melody that I believe is played on a harpsichord or maybe
Yeah,
another instrument. Not my favorite. I guess I've never just been a huge fan of the harpsichord, but especially in this song, it was just like not really my style. Um, the falsetto vocals, I wasn't really digging on this song. They're impressive, but I don't know. Like, I just at this point in the album, I was wanting something a little different, and the really high pitched vocals, like again, they're impressive. They kind of reminded me of Frankie Valli, but nowadays when I see videos of him, it's just so like meme like worthy. Like the videos of him where he looks like he's a robot on stage performing. Like that's what I think of when I hear that style of vocals nowadays. Um, I did like the harmony though during the chorus, and I did think there were some interesting chords going on in the chorus. Tony, I don't know if that's something you can attest to, like what's going on there.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely some cool choices. Like that little intro line when they're saying like the tag of the song definitely is pretty unique.
Yeah. I think my favorite part of the song was the little walk down that happens right before the bridge, which the bridge itself I really enjoyed because it just sounded a little darker and just a little bit more interesting. And especially like the guitar jabs during that part, like just how much rhythm they have. There was a key change at the end, right? I always sometimes get key changes wrong, but I felt like there was a key change near the end, which definitely keeps the song more engaging. Lyrically, I like the song definitely more than the previous track. Again, though, a small complaint is the lyric where he's like, well, I look for the same things in a woman that I dig in a girl. And then you have the backing vocals going 14, 15. And I get the point of what the backing vocals were doing. It's like the ages of him becoming like from a, teenager.
when he grows up to be a man.
Yeah, to an adult. It's just like misplaced placed after that lyric, because I know he's not saying I'm going to be looking for a 15 or 14-year-old when I'm a man. Like, I know that was not the point of the backing vocals. It's just something I heard and just was like having a hard time getting out of my head. But I will say overall, I like the song more than the previous track. I still just don't think it vibes as well as the first two songs. I feel like the album kind of started going a little off the track, just a tiny bit with these two songs.
All right, Chris, why don't you give you your thoughts here while I look for a stress ball?
Oof, that's a lot to take in.
Okay, so we hit our first
I
first
mean,
chord
it's
here.
one of their many hits.
Is it? See, I did not recognize the song.
Well, I wouldn't say as big as some of the
Well,
others,
yeah.
but yeah. That's why I feel like this whole first side is a lot of it is packed with the hits. That being one of them. It's definitely different from what they had done before. I mean, I do like the whole um not countdown, but you know, like the age part with
Yeah.
the backing vocals and how it goes with the lyrics.
I mean, I just think it's one of their. I don't know what to tell you, Rico. I think this is actually one
Yeah,
of their strongest, like, kind of still surf era songs. Like it definitely feels like they're progressing. Like they're introducing themes that are a little bit more serious and
yeah,
universal, even. I think the song musically is cool because I think it does have like kind of that easy to follow verse, and then it gets a little moodier. Then you get that real jagged hook of the song. I'm with Chris too. I really do like how the song really, like they talk about the age growing up, and it's really represented well. Um, and then at the end, just kind of the acceptance of, won't last forever. It's kind of sad. Uh, I think this is just a fantastic song. Um,
yeah.
I don't know what to tell you, Rico. You're a lyric guy. This song's got good lyrics. Song's got a great melody. It's unique. I like the harpsichord in it. I get it. A little harpsichord goes a long way. So I'm not gonna rag on you for thinking they could have went for something a little less abrasive.
I think they should have just held off on those backing vocals until after that lyric about looking at women and girls in the transition. I just think it was a little awkward because again, I get what they were going for, and I like it for the rest of the song. It was just a little weird in that moment, and again, that's why I
Get your
stopped
head
doing
out the gutter, bro.
that's why I stopped
I
doing the
mean,
research because, especially knowing Brian Wilson's relationship at the time, it gave me a little bit of an ick. I have to say, like,
I mean, it's probably the narrator thinking back at the time of like, oh, when I was like 14, 15, this is what I was looking for in a girl, and while he's singing it at his current age, and how that differs of what he's looking for in a woman in the present day compared to when he was younger.
And even like when he says 14, 15, like the backup vocals, like the narration, I think that's a good way to put it.
Hmm.
It's like he's talking about girls then, but then when he's 16 and 17, he's talking about bigger things like traveling the world. Like I think it's kind of showing as you grow, you have different values and thoughts. When he's talking about 18 or 19, talking about at that point in time, he's thinking about if he becomes a dad, like will his kids look up to him or not? When he's 20, he's talking about like, is he going to be able to settle down? So I feel like when you look at the whole song, it doesn't really come
oh
off
yeah,
creepy to me.
I'm for sure hung up on something that's silly. I will admit that. I'm a big enough person to admit that, but it is just a personal preference that it was just, that's why I stopped doing the research and kind of just focused on the music itself. But nothing in the song really just gripped me as much as their other hits or even other songs on this album. Like the next song, Dance Dance Dance, I will admit too that this is more of what I call a stereotypical early Beach Boys song. Or no, I'm sorry.
You skip one.
I saw Chris looking a little confused. I mean, this still applies. This song, the song "When I Grow Up to Be a Man" does not grip me as much as the next song, "Help Me, Rhonda." Obviously, that one being, I would say, probably a bigger hit. I mean, that was one of the few songs I knew before even listening to "Summer Days and Summer Nights."
Hmm.
Like that song to me just has so much more going on musically that it maybe doesn't seem as impressive. And I know lyrically, Tony will probably say that it's also not as impressive as "When I Grow Up to Be a Man." But there's just something about Help Me Rhonda that's just so infectious. Like, and I'm not going to get into the song too much. If people want to hear our thoughts, I definitely would go check out the our previous episode on summer days and summer nights. But I mean, I did write in my notes like this is one of the goated Beach Boy songs. I just love the upbeat vibe. I love the blending of the acoustic and electric guitars. I think it has some of their best backing vocals and harmonies. Maybe not the most impressive, but like some of the hookiest. The only thing I didn't know, and this is maybe you guys can fill me in, is this a super different version than what would end up on the next album? Because I will admit I did not get a chance this weekend to go back to Summer Days and Summer Nights. So, and it's been a little bit since I've heard that album, so I didn't quite remember if there was a lot of differences
Oh, yeah.
between the two versions.
I mean, I think like the objective big difference is, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. This one is produced by their father, where the version on Summer Days, Summer Nights was self-produced with it. Um, I think it's kind of hard to listen to the today version of it once you hear the Summer Days version, just because I think it is better in every way.
Mhm.
And every time I hear the today version, I think about like the story where like there's actually a clip of them like a session, when they're recording it, where their dad's like, "Say Rhonda sexy." Like
Jesus.
it's just like it's like what is this guy talking
Bro,
about?
I thought you were
Bro?
trying to get my mind out of the gutter.
Well, that was the father. That was the father.
That doesn't make it better.
It wasn't Al's. It wasn't Al's father. Okay,
No,
but
Murray was quite the character, is all I'll say.
So do you guys both like the Summer Days and Summer Nights version better then?
I mean, yeah, that one's definitely the more known one, but either way, it's a strong song, and there's considerable differences between the two, like just from the intros it's themselves. Like this one starts off with the guitar playing that was it the melody basically, while the Summer Days, Summer Nights just immediately starts with the vocals. And like obviously this one has definitely more of a reverb on it and like the bigger band sound compared to Summer Days, Summer Nights. We still had like the same musicians, but like the reverb was definitely noticeably more down on Summer Days, Summer Nights.
It's funny you
the
mentioned that because I do, not for this song, but there's another song, and we'll get to it when I go through my notes. There's a song on here where I did mention the how big the reverb sounded on one of these songs. I
Yeah.
definitely did notice that in the production.
it's very pet sounds, like with
Hmm.
the huge reverbs.
Yeah, and I think this is the song where that Brian and his father had a huge argument, and I think which eventually led his father just be permanently banned.
And
Yeah, from being in the studio with them.
Well, I mean, regardless, I like both versions. I'd have to listen to them back to back to like pick up on the differences and decide which I prefer. But I mean, this is still one of my favorite Beach Boy songs in general.
Yeah, I also like the during the outro. I think it's like it seems like to start fading out a little bit, and then it just fades back in,
Yeah,
which I thought was cool.
yeah, I do like that. Um, so going to the next track that I skipped to, I do think Dance 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 is falls more on that stereotypical Beach Boy sound.
Mhm.
It has that fun opening surf rock guitar riff again. This one I think has little catchy moments. I really like the melody when they sing really hot for some reason.
Mhm.
I just like the notes they hit. Definitely a song where I prefer the verses more than the chorus. They're just a little bit more exciting. I feel like there's a little bit more going on, like with the drums and the guitars. Another song where there is a guitar solo, which I dug. My only wish was that it was a little louder in the mix. I feel like that's the only time on this album where an instrument was a little buried. Um, it seemed like there was another key change in the song too, which,
Oh, oh my God.
yeah,
like
I
like
have the Leo DiCaprio reaction every time I hear that. It's just so fucking brilliant. Like,
some of the moments like Dance Dance Dance, like probably like Don't Hurt My Little Sister and stuff. It kind of reminds me of All Summer Long, where there's kind of a lot of really weird stuff going on in the songs modulation wise. And I like All Summer Long. I think some of the songs are really interesting. Not to get too sidetracked there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I definitely appreciate kind of how even though Dance 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 starts off pretty typical, you're
Hmm.
like, okay, there's actually kind of a lot going on in this song,
Yeah.
and I would say this song is still kind of a light hitter, you know.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, I do think the lyrics were like a whatever, like they were kind of a snooze fest for me. But the music was great, and I'm not usually a huge fan of key changes, but I think it works really well in this song. And it sounded like, again, I thought during the end where they're singing dance a lot, it sounded like there was maybe horns in the background.
Probably.
Which I again, there's a song I know coming up where there's for sure some horns.
Hmm.
But yeah, I dance, dance, dance. Which every time I think of it, I think of the Neil Young song.
Mm.
That yeah, that so like anytime I just say that title, I just think of his song.
Yeah.
Which is a lot is an even more simple song lyrically and musically than this one.
Right,
But
because
yeah,
that ended up being Love is a Rose, but
yeah.
that's not part of this.
No, no, it's not part of this. But yeah, it's like lyrically not a high point on the album, but like I do think musically it's a deceptive song. It's if you listen to it without paying too much attention, it's like, oh yeah, this is just a nice Beach Boy song. But like when you kind of more dive into the structure of the song, like Tony was saying, there's definitely more of a payout.
Oh my God, that modulation in the middle of a verse, just instead of just like starting it before the verse, just do it midway through. It's just brilliant.
I was nothing that I would ever consider like would ever come to my mind when writing a song.
Yeah.
and I think overall the song makes a good closer for side one. You know, it's fun,
Yeah.
it's exciting,
Good
and kind
bookend
of
to You Want to Dance.
exactly.
Oh,
And
I didn't even consider that. Yeah, that is a good point.
And then we get to side two, which this is where the album comes like goaded. Like the first part of the album, I'm like, okay, it's solid. I like some of the stuff. It's kind of on par with the other highlights of their rock songs from previous albums.
Mhm.
But this is where the album gets special. So you're walking on thin ice here, Rico.
Well, I will say I do like the way it begins with "Please Let Me Wander."
Mhm.
Um, Although I think when I first listened to this album, I misread it and misheard it as "Please Let Me Wander" with an A.
Mhm.
So I kind of thought he was singing about like let this be like an open relationship type deal, and I was kind of like what? And then I'm like oh he's let me wonder, and then I was like oh this makes more sense. But no, I like when it comes to like the ballads on this album, I do like this one. Um, I think the electric guitar in the song has a really cool tone, and it blends with the acoustic guitar nicely. Um, I like the change of the instrumentation during the verses. The piano is really pretty. I especially, you guys have to tell me who sings this lead on this one because I really like how tender the vocals are on this track.
Brian, a song where it's actually comfortably in his range, which are some of his best performances, truthfully.
Well, I could probably agree with that then because, yeah, I love the vocals on this track. Um, and I especially like the backing vocals doing the ooze. I don't know if
Mhm.
it's like in the chorus, like right before, or in the verse, like right before the chorus, but I really like the backing ooze. I will say the falsetto during the chorus, not, I don't enjoy it as much, but I definitely liked it better than the falsetto on When I Grow Up to Be a Man, which I know is so far our biggest disagreement. Um, and at a high point for me lyrically, I think these lyrics are actually very sweet. Love the bridge. Love the little keyboard solo. I don't know like what type of keyboard they were using, but just that little melody that's played in the bridge, I really enjoyed. And this was the song where Chris was talking about the reverb, where during the bridge, the guitar had this like really rich reverb sound. And when it's doing those strums, I thought that just sounded great. The only little thing of the song that like was just a little kind of question mark for me was
And he's gonna say it at the end. He's gonna
at the
say it.
end when he says like "I love you," and it's just like so. I don't know. It's almost like I feel like out of place. Like the lyrics are already sweet. I feel like I didn't need the, or at least the "I love you" just sounded kind of a little awkward. But I mean, it's almost a nothing complaint. Like it doesn't. I don't mark the song down for it. I just was like a little strange when I first heard it. But yeah, this is probably Is it my favorite of like the ballads? I would say it's probably my favorite of the ballads. I really liked it. I really liked Please Let Me Wander.
It was definitely an early favorite for me. And real quick, before I let Chris share his thoughts here, I do think the him saying "I love you" at the end does make a lot of sense, kind of thematically with the song, because he never says what he really wants to say during the verses and stuff. Like if you're kind of just reading the lyrics, like it's like, okay, well, what did he plan to say? I mean, you could guess, but at the end, it is basically him saying that. So I mean, I think it is warranted at the very least. And I mean, it's an intimate song, so I appreciate the kind of going full on with that. But this was an early favorite of mine for sure when I first heard the record.
Yeah, it definitely helps. Begin the distinction of the two sides of the album. The first side we touched upon was probably more like harkens back to the early days, whereas this side shows where he's going, musically, musically and lyrically, of like self-doubt and in his
Yeah.
relationships. And so I think that instrument was probably either Farfisa organ or the B3 that Rico was talking
Oh,
about
in the
in the
bridge,
solo.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. I really dug it. I think it had a really cool tone.
it does.
I almost forgot too. This is actually the first song that Wilson wrote under the influence of marijuana. Forgot about that.
Really,
Uh,
this song does not give that vibe.
I
Maybe
mean,
like
he
I
sings
guess
it very mellow. I gotta say.
I mean like maybe in the lyrics like he's kind of being more vulnerable maybe, but like it's
But
like
you
it's,
mentioned the reverb. It's a very soft sounding
it
song.
is, yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean I guess my mind went to like, oh, he's stoned out of his mind, but that doesn't have to be the
Yeah, he's
case.
lost in the sauce. That wasn't until California Girls, bro.
Oh, that was LSD.
Took it up a notch, I guess. No, I mean, yeah, I think this is a good start to side one.
Yes.
Next up here, we have another cover, "I'm So Young"
Oh, okay. Thank
by
God
the
it's a cover.
Students.
Thank God it's a cover because
What? What?
I didn't like this one.
It's so good.
Okay, well, okay.
I'm gonna mute myself for a minute. All right.
I'll just get past the struggle I had with the song were the lyrics and again the research I did, but I'm not even going to dive into that because this is a cover, so it doesn't even count. I didn't so much like how dramatic the beginning is with like the vocals and that guitar coming in and out with the backing vocals. Like I don't know, it just felt very different than the rest of the album. Now that you said it's a cover, it makes sense because I did write in my notes this felt like an older sounding song than the rest of the album. It had that like more 50s kind of like sway in the song and in the progression itself. So that is actually checks a lot of boxes for me now. I did really like the drums and the guitar and the rhythm they were playing when they do that I'm section. I did think that was really cool. This definitely gave me more of like a doo-wop kind of sound, which again makes more sense if you said it was a cover or an older song than some of these others.
1958 was the original release.
Yeah, and I wrote 50 slash early 60s in my notes, so that checks out. And I guess I liked the song a little bit more than I thought because I did also like the guitar fake out near the end, like where you think the song's ending and then it comes back. So there were things I liked about the song. I just really didn't like not the vocals. I just really didn't like the lyrics too much. But I mean, hey, it's a cover, so I don't even. I mean, that's not even really a solid complaint, I guess, at that point. But yeah, not. I guess on a first listen, I didn't know what to expect. I was not expecting a very more ballads or more slower tempo songs for the second half. So I think I was like, kind of hoping for the album to return to something a little bit more up tempo.
Oh, I get
So
that.
yeah, I think on our first couple listens, I was kind of like a little perplexed. I was like, huh, this isn't maintaining that kind of upbeat tempo from like those first two songs or even something like a Dance Dance Dance. So,
hmm
but not my least favorite song on the album, but just not in my top songs on the album either.
I get it.
Chris, I gotta cool down for a second. You take this one.
I kind of there with him. It would be like probably lower on my list if I had actually done a ranking of it, but
Ha, Tony,
I
you're
do.
wrong this time. You're the wrong one.
I'll take the L this time, I guess.
I do like it. I do love the feel to it, and I think it's like one of the rare few where it's just the four or five of them,
Yeah, it had
nothing
an intimate
the
sound.
wrecking ball.
It's on. It might be like one of my maybe my favorite cover they do. Honestly, I just think they really nailed the performance. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's of the songs where Brian's doing like a full falsetto pretty much the whole time. I think this is one of the strongest performances. Um, there's just something about it I really like. I think that intro sounds super nice. The production.
Mm.
Uh, and I used to always laugh when I first heard the song when he's like, "I have a girlfriend." Like that's kind of funny. But I actually really like the song. The break Rico's talking about, the I'm like that part's really cool, interactive. Um, yeah, I just really enjoy it. I just think it's a really enjoyable song.
I think you really
Gets the
like it
point
because you're
across.
so young.
I don't know if that's true.
You're younger than the two of us, so I think
Well,
so.
we'll just say I'm young. I'm not sure if I was go too far to say so.
Now, I will say what I said at the end of that song there, when I was like kind of expecting or hoping for more upbeat songs. Unfortunately, "Kiss Me, Baby" doesn't give us that return to the more upbeat stuff. It's another kind of slower ballad, and at this point of the album, on a first couple listens, it was a little bit harder to distinguish between these last couple of songs on this side of the album. I did think the piano was beautiful. Um, I liked the sound of the acoustic guitars and how kind of rhythmic they were. I feel like anytime I hear acoustic guitar on this album, I thought it was really well done. It was never really loud in the mix, but just loud enough to kind of add to the song to give it texture.
Hmm.
I like the little descending guitar riff that was followed by the little drum snare hit. I like that. Now, after that, when they go to that section where there's that other percussive sound, I didn't love that as much. But I did enjoy that there was some more interesting things going on with the percussion on this song, as opposed to like the last song where you said it was definitely more of a intimate kind of sound.
You're talking about when he
Um,
says late last night, and it's like doopa doopa doo, kind of like that on the percussion.
yeah, I think.
I had to
Um,
track that down there real quick.
Actually, I want to, because there's a part. I want to say I know what you're talking about. I actually don't think that's the part. Let me just pull it up really quick because there's a very
Because I know
specific.
there's like the wood block in the beginning, and I like a good wood block.
It's oh, of course these aren't
Oh,
synced with
like
the
sync to
lyrics.
the.
Yeah, it's no, it's not the wood block. Huh? I did I like imagine it earlier when I listened to
This was the first song Rico listened to when he smoked marijuana.
it. I don't know. Maybe I like wrote that for the wrong song. Um, it's
Hmm.
possible, but
Yeah, yeah. Take
there,
that back. Take that
there.
back.
Okay,
Looks like there is a block, so maybe there.
maybe it was the block, and maybe when I wrote these notes, I wasn't digging the block, but then maybe by now I enjoyed
Got
it
used to
more.
it.
Yeah, it could have been that. Um, it was interesting the backing vocals, like in like the chorus where it's like really fast and like it almost sounds like he doesn't want you to hear what he's singing. Um, I didn't dislike it. I almost just found it kind of funny, and I know Tony did too because he knew exactly what I was talking about when I started saying it. So
It is kind of funny, like the first few times I heard it, and I think that's
yeah,
okay for songs to be kind of maybe funny.
he's like da-da-da-da-da-da. You're like, what? What did you say? Um, my only complaint was just it was just a little slow after the other two songs. Like I was kind of hoping for something a little more up tempo. I think we get that with the next song, but I actually dig this one way more on my sixth or seventh listen than I did the first couple.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a fan favorite, but it took me a while to get there. It's
Mhm.
not that I disliked it, but it didn't grab me like the other songs. But after hearing it for a while and stuff, I think it is a really pretty, really powerful song. I think the production is really a highlight. It kind of has that like you said, there's like a really good blend of sounds, and you can hear the elements, but you like it's almost like you can't quite grab them though. Kind of like I think some of the better Pet Sounds production moments. Like there's just something super unique about it, even if you do kind of dissect it.
I mean, yeah, I'm curious though, do you guys like this next song as much? Because I think She Knows Me Too Well is a highlight for me musically on this side of the album. Um, I was the intro with the guitar strums and the different chords mixed with the vocals. I just found to be kind of fascinating, like in a good way. Like it kind of kept me on the edge of my seat. Um, I like that it was more up tempo. I like the chord progression more than the last couple songs because it was going places I was not expecting it to go. Um, Again, some of the higher vocals during the chorus were, I guess when it comes to the Beach Boys, I find it impressive at first, and then I find it a little much. But it's
I
just a
mean,
preference thing. I mean, Tony and I spent half an hour arguing about Tom York's whiny vocals, so we definitely have some different viewpoints there when it comes to vocals.
like when I hear "She Knows Me Too Well," like the chorus, I'm not thinking, "Oh my gosh, these are impressive vocals." I'm thinking, "Oh, this is like a really vulnerable, like kind of highlight to the song."
Hmm.
Um, I definitely think this is an interesting song composition wise, but maybe it doesn't feel as maybe goofy as some of the faster songs earlier that were also pretty adventurous.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Um,
like lyrically, it's almost that there's some dark moments. Like he sings, um, he'll make her break down and cry. Like I'm like, that's kind of a dark lyric. I'm like, is this guy kind of a jerk? Like the narrator of the song, like. Um, but I thought the guitar solo was a really nice touch. The drums had an interesting kind of sound to them, like the drum beat. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, was that kind of like the Phil Spector influence? I wrote
Oh,
in
yeah,
my
that's Hal
notes.
Blaine.
Okay. But yeah, I definitely think this song was a highlight for me on this side of the album. Like Tony said, I do think it's 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 a sweet, touching moment. I think for the most part lyrically, other than that kind of like darker kind of lyric. But um, I definitely like this one more than I'm So Young, and I definitely like it more than something like When I Grow Up to Be a Man or Don't Hurt My Little Sister.
Kind of surprised you call this one sweet, but Chris,
Well,
how do you feel about this one?
I like it. It kind of goes off, kind of going off what Rico was saying about the lyrics. I think at this time, though, you are saying Brian definitely influenced by, I'm sure marijuana played a part in this, but like definitely Bob Dylan and John Lennon, because he always felt himself in competition, definitely with the Beatles. And I
I
think,
mean, who wouldn't?
uh, yeah, I know, and Bob was definitely one of the biggest stars in America at this time as well. And this is probably around the same time that Bring It All Back Home was released, because this was released March 8th, and then Bring It All Back Home was released like a couple weeks later. So there was definitely a lot of that, um, everyone just influencing everyone. And the fact that they were like recorded around the same time too just shows, he was paying attention closely.
And kind of touching upon, lyrically exploring different areas for the Beach Boys. I think really the only song before, like, She Knows Me So Well. I mean, I'll just use that song. Is Warmth of the Sun, where it's like
Mm.
actually like a song that's like not super on the nose. It's not just like, oh, I want to marry this girl type of thing. It's like
Yeah.
I really do like when the Beach Boys explore those opportunities to go a little deeper and maybe focus on something kind of sad.
I think, yeah, he definitely, a lot of that lyrical style in general, I think probably started with Brian as well.
Yeah.
Because
And
I think he saw what that Dylan was allowing you to just, show your vulnerable side. So that's what Brian did. And like even earlier on, like in my room, uh, so something like that.
I did read one time in an interview that Brian was saying that a lot of people think of "In My Room" as a really sad song, but I think I read it in one of his biographies. But you never know how honest those ones are.
Yeah.
But that "In My Room" wasn't really a sad song to him. Like he wrote the lyrics while like playing catch with his friend. But I like that song really does come out being pretty sad.
Yeah,
You
just
can interpret it as
the
well.
openness of it, we could say, instead of sad.
You know,
So that
we're
was the penultimate track there. She knows me too well.
well, but
Well,
not really
I
though,
mean, I
Tony.
mean,
no, there's
I
in the back of my mind.
well, yeah. That'd be the next one. Come on, this the last
Yeah,
one's not a
I
Tony
song.
know.
Tony is trying
I
to
know.
pretend that there's not another
Yeah.
track at the end of this
All right,
album.
just get to the next song. Just get to the next song. Tell us why you
Well,
hate it.
okay. No,
Tell us why it's a flop.
in the back of my mind, and I will say, Tony, I do consider this like the closer. Like in the back of my mind is a really fitting closing track. I actually think it's one of the more interesting songs on the second side of this album. I liked the guitar arpeggio that begins the song. Again, kind of reminds me of like a late 50s, early 60s kind of ballad, kind of like I'm So Young a little bit.
Very much of its time.
Yeah, but this
Agree.
one's not a cover, right? You're not
No.
gonna hit me with a cover, Tony. Okay. Um, I like the lyrics more in this song. See, this one kind of gave me the way you guys kind of described the last track. That's kind of how this one it kind of hits me, where it's kind of like bittersweet a little bit. And I think it does a great job of kind of building this feeling up until the very last moment of the song. I like that for the main part of the song, the main vocals are kind of sung lower. And I think it's a much needed change of pace from some of the higher falsettos we get in the previous tracks. Really like the strings. Really like when they're doing the little plucking. I think that's a nice detail. They become, really rhythmic.
Mhm.
And then what I believe is the sax, I think is beautiful. Maybe it's not a sax. It's definitely a horn instrument of some kind. Kind of I think in the middle. There's a moment where it really shines through. Tony's giving me a face like I'm making this up, but
No. I'm just trying to think of the
okay.
vibe. I'm going through it right now.
I really like the descending guitar line at the very end. And then my favorite probably part of the song is at the very end when the lead vocals get really passionate. And that was a moment when he gets up there, but not in like pitch, but just like in strength of the vocals. I thought was a highlight on the album for me. Probably my favorite vocal moment on the entire album. And then that last little chord you get at the end of the song too, I thought was an interesting way to close out the song. And I mean, not technically the album, but musically, it is the end of the album. And I really like that last little moment of the song. It kind of caps the album off in a different way than I was expecting. So I definitely think one of the more dynamic songs when it comes to the slower, kind of more ballad songs on the second half.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely saxophone that you're hearing.
Chris, what do you think about this one?
It's a great closer. It reminds me, especially that saxophone park part. It reminds me of or I picture myself like watching a movie from like like 50s or 60s around that time where you just see someone just walking on a quiet street at night and you just hear that saxophone part playing. And Dennis does a good job singing it.
Yeah, kind of bookend the album. Dennis on the
Mhm.
opener, Dennis on the song closer.
He
Yeah.
might be the underrated hero on this album then, because those are like two of my favorite vocal moments, like songs wise, on this album.
I mean, yeah, I definitely think later on you get some maybe more technically strong performances later in the career, but these were definitely highlights of the early Dennis performances. I also do like his Dennis's part at the end of "I'm So Young," where he's kind of just like kind of whining, "Can't marry no one." So I think he does definitely shine on this album for sure. So I'm with you on that.
Oh, before you get going, Tony, this since we're talking about like kind of vocal takes, I wanted to mention you did send me a version earlier today of was it Please Let Me Wonder
Uh,
with
when I grow up,
or When I Grow
the
Up. No,
Backstreet
no, no,
Boys singing
no,
it.
no, not that. The Mike Love
Oh,
vocal was
on
it?
Please Let Me Wonder.
Yeah, you sent me that, and I agree with the people in the YouTube comments who were like, "This, Mike's performance on that take of that song was nice, but it definitely fits Brian's vocals better."
And I have to send you Stone Temple Pilots cover of "She Knows Me Too Well."
The hell?
It's a pretty good
so
one.
random.
Hey, Lord
I mean, I
goes
know that's
deep.
like two of your favorite bands mashed up, but
Dude, it was on the Purple when they did like one like the 20th anniversaries or
Mm.
whatever. So that was cool. But anyways, I really like In the Back of My Mind. It's probably my favorite, even though I think the execution could be a little bit better, a little bit more refined. But that's kind of a nitpick. I just think the song is well written lyrically, musically,
Hmm.
and the ending is very kind of not like mysterious as it sounds, like real like inquisitive.
But
It
that's
just
what I
kind of
said.
ends kind of weird.
I
Yeah.
said it was an interesting ending, but I kind of liked
No,
it
no,
too.
I'm agreeing with you on that.
Yeah. So I did write on my notes for both sessions with Big Daddy. I wrote, "What the fuck is this?" Um, like, okay, it's not weird. It's not like a stupid Mopty in the album. Like, it's clearly like it sounds like an interview with the band. No idea why they called it what they called it. And I will say it's like a fun, cutesy kind of moment. Like it starts off with them like talking about like eating sandwiches, and I found
Hmm.
them talking about the French fries, and one of them asking, "Oh, these have onions on it. Is that okay?" Like I found that funny, and I found it funny too when they were talking about, "Oh, I've already made 3 mistakes so far on this tour." Like it was funny. I was just kind of like, "What is this?" Like I don't know. I was just like, this would be cool as like a hidden track, but like it's just so weird that it has its own name, and it's not even just like interview with the Beach Boys. It's like it has an actual name. I was just kind of like, this is weird, but I don't mark the it doesn't make the album any better or worse. It's just whatever, but it is kind of interesting that they included this.
It's just Brian setting up the psychedelic era. I mean, yeah,
Oh
it's like, what can you say?
Yeah, I much prefer like the shorter end to like Caroline No, where there's just kind of some
Yeah.
random noises at the end, as opposed to
Train
this.
at the end.
Yeah, the train whistle, the dog bark.
Yep. It's just some levity after I don't know, the more like mature, um, that's the word I'm looking for. I don't want to say sad, but or melancholy, just
I get what you're
bit of
getting
levity
at.
from
That
all
is
the
a fair point.
heavy topics of the second side.
Yeah. I mean, I'll definitely take a song like "I'm Bugged on My Old Man" over something like this. But no, I think you make a fair point about kind of ending on a lighter note, which
Yeah,
probably was important at the time, especially for like the band and kind of their image.
right.
So were my opinions as bullshit, Tony or Chris, that you thought they were going to be? Because I definitely had some opinions you guys did not share. I think this is by far my least favorite of the 3 Beach Boys albums I've heard now. Well, this being the fourth. Um, so I am a little surprised that this is your favorite, Chris. Is this your favorite because like some nostalgic reason, or just because you think it's kind of like their best work pre Pet Sounds, or because I would still take a Pet Sounds over this, or the Smile Session songs.
I mean, it's like impossible to compare anything to Pet Sounds, but I just like its placement in that history up to that time. Because you could just see it, like you could just hear it, like that's where he's going. So I always try to imagine what it would have been like at the time listening to it when it came out. But I just find Beach Boys today would probably be their most cohesive up to that point.
And I
Yeah,
will say I have not heard the previous album, so it is a little harder for me without the context to be in that same mindset. That said, Tony, how much do you want to strangle me now?
well, no, I want to agree with Chris here. I do think something I like about the Beach Boys is kind of putting yourself in that perspective of like Brian and as a songwriter. You can really hear his growth as a songwriter throughout the albums, and just kind of the history of the band. Like I totally get you on that, like liking eras for different reasons. Um, Now today isn't my favorite. I think it has some of my favorite songs of theirs. Maybe just that whole last half I think is really unique and special. Um, but I think it's a good feeling record. Um, it does remind me when I like when I hear this record, it makes me think about when I first heard it and was listening to it a bunch. And I picked up my copy actually of it when I was in Arizona on a trip, so that kind of adds to it maybe. But I mean, I don't think necessarily, Rico, that your takes were necessarily bad. I just didn't agree with them. I just hope that the songs that I really liked on the record grow on you, just because I think they're fantastic. Um, And I think that they are, relatable at least to some extent. So I think there's a chance that they could grow on you.
Well, I don't know. I've already blocked them on my Spotify account, so that's not happening. No, I'm just joking.
Bro, no, like my Spotify, I'll have like the same song like 3 times. It's just different mixes of it, just because
Jesus Christ.
I'm not paying enough attention.
Well, I guess the last question's got to be, where do we go from here? What are you guys going to be giving me next?
We gotta throw them into some later stuff. I think.
Okay.
You had kind of the best of the early stuff. And I gave him Smile just to show him kind of like the most cracked out, like as far as like technical album of the Beach Boys.
I was kind of scratching my head a couple times, like, what am I listening to?
But I don't know. I think something like it might be really fun to give him a Surf's Up.
Maybe. Or
But he might like.
Smile.
So, okay, that's gonna be a long episode if we give him that one.
Or Sunflower, which that's probably my favorite of that period after Pet Sounds.
There is some really good stuff on that. I mean, like, you slip on through. Also, let's talk about Dennis's vocals. That's a great Dennis performance. You
Aren't
might
you
like
always
Friends.
I was gonna say you always mention that one, Tony.
I think Friends is pretty cool. But we'll have to figure this out later. We'll have to figure this out.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys for giving me this album. I did enjoy it despite my my complaints for some of the songs, and I think it will definitely grow on me. So yeah, drop us a comment and let us know what you think of this album. Let me know why I'm wrong. Although if you do, I'm just going to assume that it's Tony's burner accounts. But until next time, we hope you take care, and you'll be hearing from us soon. Bye-bye. Where are you going to give you your next Bruce or your next U2? We just got to decide which. I think if it's U2, I think Chris wants to go down the river rabbit hole. Right?
For Bruce, you mean?
Oh, did I say U2? Yeah, I meant Bruce. Yeah, my bad.
We went all episode without a Rico confusion.
God damn it. Now Tony's going to start using that every episode.
So happy he did a mix up.